Hey guys, I know it's been a really long time, so what is up? We're kind of gonna treat this episode as a state of the game, where are my teams at? What's my box looking like? What am I currently up to? As you know, biggest reason I haven't been uploading is because of my prior setup. My computer is pretty old. It was pushing 4 years and it was never, made to do video editing, so I've just recently purchased a brand new laptop. I bought the 2016 15-inch Retina MacBook Pro with that quad core Intel Core i6 or i7 6th generation, and I have a dedicated graphics processor and 16 gigs of RAM. So this is a real big upgrade. So getting into my first team right here, I was fortunate enough during the Godfest exclusive Rare Egg Machine to roll a lot of good stuff, and in that I was able to roll two Kaide. I'm gonna pronounce all these wrong, I promise you, so don't even worry about that. So for the lead, Cade, I had Cade sub, which is as you can imagine, the perfect team is a whole thing of Cades, and the reason for that, if you have them all max skilled and you pop each of the skills, you can pretty much recharge all of them as you go along and never run out of skills, so you're kind of perpetually in the game. So, as you can tell, I also have a Pavardi, which I need to reincarnate now that that has come out because, by having the reincarnation, I'll get that extra awakening, which will allow me, clear binds, which is great on a Cade team because absolutely none of them are bind proof except for the Pavardi itself. Then, as you can see, I also have the Norn, kind of like an afterthought because you can just change the whole board. You get fire, wood, and heal orbs, so you can proc your cross shield, and you can also do a lot of damage with grass. Then kind of going into that, my kind of utility sub I'm currently trying to use on here is a Vishnu, which is great for kind of spawning if you're kind of orb trolled and you need an extra 2 green orbs, or it's also great to just constantly proc over and over again, so you're getting that increased drop rate on the grass orbs. So all in all, it's been a fun team. It's a very different play style than I'm used to, but it's really been, I mean, the amount of damage I can pump out with a couple two prongs and a cross is insane. So it's really been a fun team to work with and play with, and I've really gotten it up into a tip-top shape to actually tackle some descended content. So moving into our next team. So here we have the my Awoken Raw team. I know it's looking kind of rough, but this has been a great team for, those non-RCV dungeons, and even more so now with the recent release of the Reincarnation Evolution, which, as you can see, I haven't gotten to any of them yet because I have to farm all 5 of those masks, and I'm so not in the mood to do that. But despite that, what we also have on that team is a Decali, which best sub on the planet when I talk about my main team that I run. I also kind of have on there, El Meta that gives you your bind recovery, all around great. You get every match. I think you're getting about 1,000 HP. So it's just a great in general sub to have. And we see what I also rolled from that Godfest exclusive rag machine is a Kana. Got that ultimate for all that extra damage, which is just such a godsend being able to pump that damage out. And then finally, you have that to cover those last 2 elements, water and grass. You have Isis, which is always a fantastic sub to have in there. Unbindable, can give you a little bit of a shield, has very low cooldown, and all in all, this is one of those teams, I was able to clear with a co-op friend I had the Mech Zeus by being carried, and it required, using an Awoken Raw sub because it does great amount of damage, pretty controllable, and I mean, it's an easy times 100, and now I can't even tell what it is now. It's like times 225 or something, even higher than that with the Awoken Raw. So this is kind of like that rarely used team, used for that not those non-RCV dungeons, but I also have another one to use for those non-RCV dungeons, and that's going to be Sakuya. We got the Awoken Sakuya and Sakia, or however you want to pronounce it. As I said before, I've been docked by many people for my pronunciations, but I ain't even mad. So we can see very similar to my Awoken Raw team, this time we have 2 Decalis. Highlight there, we see one's not Ultimate Evolved. That's because of the duplicate restricted dungeons. For the longest time I've wanted to roll a third one, but I got my 2. I can't complain too much. And from there, similar setup. We have the Kana for that extra damage, and Woken Isis kind of rounding at the end for that great color coverage. Once again, use this mainly for non-RCB dungeons, and that's about it. I don't really use it too often. I prefer to use Awoken Rod just because I love using a full board of colors. That's just what I'm used to. It's more natural and it's a lot more controllable compared to depending on combos and that sort of stuff. Now, kind of getting into my last, niche team is my Shiva team. Right now, you can tell, as I've stated prior, the reincarnated evolution's out there, and that's obviously something I'm going to be upgrading to once I have all the proper evolution materials. So kind of, we see right here, his predominant use is for tricolor because he's a lot of fun to use. I have, Minerva right there for a really quick cooldown. Fire orb creation. I have my red Sonya because, I haven't used that in forever. I got to keep her relevant somehow. And then I have Archangel, I think it's Uriel, correct me if I'm wrong there. And once again, great all-around sub, and same with getting that delay from Cacao or Cacao or whatever chocolate bar you want to call this thing. And all in all, keep this brief. It's a fun team to use, but not very practical for most, mainly just for farming. Now the creme de la creme, what does BondFancy use for 99% of the dungeons? The answer to that question is, my Raw Dragon team, kind of my first real good team I've had, and it's just such a joy to use with the great damage control with the 9 times and the times 144 multiplier. Pretty easy to activate. I love using rainbow teams. I think they're a lot of fun, and as you can see right here, here's the perfect team for Raw Draw. You have the 2D Callies, and as many of you remember me rolling the Indra, that was a real reaction. That was real time. No smoke and mirrors right there. And then Awoken Isis to get the rest of that coverage. And it gets even better because, as everyone knows, Japan has the new evolution of Raw Dragon, which is an insane feat to obtain. And I'm really excited about it because of that health. And we saw I have Kana, and Kana will be replacing that Indra, and then I'm going to have the bomb team, and it's going to be such a joy to use. And of course, as I mentioned with those awful, 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 awful evolutionary materials, I have them all finally. I don't advise anyone to try and do and get this. I mean, the worst was, honestly, I can't tell which was worse, the Zeus Dragon or the Awoken Mech Zeus evolution. I mean, I used the one-shot challenge that allowed you, depending on, water, fire, or grass starter, and I was able to pick it up there, I think, using 3 stones, which honestly, hey, for 3 stones, not a bad deal. I also got carried through Mech Zeus, thankfully, with a friend from the Puzzles and Dragons USA, Japan global group they have on Facebook there, and the rest, aren't too hard to get, but those evolutionary materials and the amount of keepers of gold, ugh, thank God I have all of this, because this is never getting put on a single thing ever again. So, that's kind of going into all my teams, because, this is already a really long video, and I'm sure most of you are tired and hate listening to a video going on this long. I'm just going to kind of quickly go through my monster box, and if anyone's curious, here's all my gods. I have quite a few. You can kind of on your own time take a look and see them for yourself. Just pause it and look. But once again, great to be back on YouTube, and I hope to see you guys in the next video when I'll get some commentary out on some dungeons. But until then, see you later.